All right, so today we're going to show you how to change the spring if you break your spring on your Charger EXT crank. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to take the blue spool covers off. It's a 3/32 Allen key, and you just spin those three out. Okay, next what I do here is I'm going to cut the rope and remove the rope from the spools. Okay, next you want to remove the felt pad because you're going to need to take the two halves apart, and if you don't take off the felt pad, it'll be more difficult to do that. All right, so the next step now is we need to remove both spools. So with the spools, there are two pins. You can see one there and one here, and we need to drive those out. You can just hold it and use a punch. I have a little jig, which makes it a little bit easier. So I'm just going to use that. So we're just going to use a punch. So on the pins, you can see one is countersunk and one is not. So you want to drive it through from the countersunk side. Okay, remove the spool, and then just do the other side. Okay, remove the second spool. You'll notice on the right side of the Charger there is a spring washer, so just make sure not to lose that. Okay, so here at this point, the next step is just to take the two halves apart. So here with a 9/64 Allen key, you want to take out your three screws. Okay, so at this point, all you need to do is just kind of wiggle it, and it should come apart. Okay, if it's in the release position, it makes it a little bit easier as opposed to the push to cock position. Okay, so then it comes apart in your two halves. This is your gear stopper, that just slides off, like so, and now you're into your spring. This spring is fine, but we're going to change it anyway just to show how it comes out. The easiest way that I do it is just fling it out so it doesn't cut you. So I'm just going to pull out on this, and it's going to unwind. So there's your broken spring and a mess. This is a 1/16 Allen key. That's going to just loosen that fastening screw. Okay. And we'll discard that. Okay. So everything's apart now. We're ready to start putting it all back together. When you get your new spring, it's going to look like so. So we just take off our twist tie. Okay. And it's going to position on the half that has this post. So the spring is going to be orientated in this direction with that little hole sliding over the post, and that's going to secure the one end of it. So I just slide this little metal piece up to the top. Slide it over the post. Pull the metal wire piece out. Okay. And that's your spring installed in the housing. Okay. So the next step then is to put your axle back in. The easiest way to understand which way to put it in, you have your two holes for your two pins for your spools, and the bottom side has the third or the second hole for the screw to fasten the spring. Okay, so here we like to use a little bit of Loctite on your screw. And keep that ready and handy. Okay, slide your pin in just till it hits the bottom there. I use a small screwdriver just to grab that spring and hold it like so. Now you've got your screw with the Loctite through the hole of the spring and then into the hole on your axle. Okay. Just want to tighten that down. And then just push it down till it's flush. Okay, that's the new spring installed. Gear stopper goes back on top, just push in. The other half again just slides back together like so. And again, if it's in the release position, it slides back together much easier. Okay, so here we're just going to replace the 3 screws. Okay, this is a good time to replace your pad. We'll send you a new pad along with the spring. This is just the easiest way to get at it. Again, just a sticky side, just slide it on like so. Super easy. Okay, so next is to put the spools back on. So I always start with the left side. At this point, it doesn't matter which side or which direction you put it on. With the spool, one hole is a slide fit, the other hole is a press fit. So you want to make sure you're using the slide fit side. Slide it over the axle, line it up with the hole, and I just usually use a hammer just to try and find the hole. There we go. Okay, just so it's in. So now we're onto the right side. Can't forget our little wave washer. So that's got to go on first. Okay. Now, the trick here with the second spool is you want this little silver button to line up with this little silver button. Okay. And what those buttons do is when you're winding up your crank, it winds along down this side, it hits the spool and forces it to start spooling up the other side. So instead of it coming along and kind of winding on top of itself and then falling over, making a clunk, that eliminates that clunk during the caulking process. Okay, so you want to make sure that those 2 spools line up. So basically, this pin goes in on this side, this one's going to go in on the opposite side, and that's how they line up. It's going to go on this side, make sure the spring washer's in there. Okay. So now it's in position, and if you notice, the little silver buttons are lined up in the same position. So make sure that that happens. Okay. So again, I have a little jig, but you can just set it on a bench or wherever you have handy. Okay. Grab your punch, and we're just going to punch these pins back in. Perfect. So now we're in good shape. The next step actually is to put our string on and our hooks, okay? So what I usually do is I cut that edge of that rope on a nice little 45. So it looks like that, and that'll help go through there. I give it a little bend. Slide it through the hole, that's better. And then we're going to do a double knot. Okay, so 2 times through, short little tail. Okay, and you just want to secure the knot in the hole. Okay, so next is to put the hooks on. You want to make sure that they're positioned holding the crank like it would be on the back of the bow. You want your hooks coming up and underneath the string. So from the left side, I'm going to orientate the hooks like that. We're just going to cut the rope again. Right, and just feed it through the hole like so. Again, we're into a double knot. Short little tail, and then snug it in the hole. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is kind of pre-tension the string and wind our rope back onto these spools. Okay, so the rope's always going to come off the bottom. If you do it wrong, it's not hard to fix, but when you put your spools back on, you'll see that it does have to come off the bottom. So at this point, without putting any tension or anything on the spring, I'm just going to wind equal amount of twists, turns on both sides. So I'm going to go. Doesn't have to be pretty at this point because we just want to try and build that tension. We'll pull it out and it'll wind itself out better as we do it at the end there. So. Okay, so at this point, you're pretty close. So I'm just gonna put it into the release position here. Okay. So as I pull it out, not quite enough. So we're just gonna put a couple more twists on each side. Close enough. Okay, try it one more time. Okay, so what you're looking for is you should have about 1 or 2 wrappings left on the spool when you pulled it all the way out. Okay. So we're just going to put maybe just one more twist in it and that'll be about perfect. So there you go, there's your 2 on each end. Let it spool itself in, and then there's enough tension there to keep your hooks on your pegs. Okay? So there you've got the tension preset. Really the only thing left is to put your spools back on. Trick with the spools is you want to make sure you can read it from the back, so that's the easiest way to get them orientated correctly. Again, a 3/32 Allen key. Okay, the only thing left then would be just to take a lighter, burn those ends a little bit so they're cleaned up and they won't fray. And you've changed the spring and the hooks and the rope on your Charger EXT